Hi, everybody. How you doing tonight? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Looking forward to having yet another great conversation with you all this evening. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. Let's have another epic, amazing conversation. I'm looking forward to it. Let's go.
American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is just a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. So glad to be here with all of you. Should be a great conversation tonight. Yet another one of our late night chats, our late night conversations. It's been a strange day in New York City, I will say. Apparently, we are breathing in smoke from Canadian forest fires. It's been an interesting day, outside with the weather, and it's been bizarre. But I walked around the neighborhood. Yeah, what a day! What a day! So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notifications bell. Now, the way we do these streams generally, just to fill you all in, is I give my opening remarks. That's what we're doing right now. While I give my opening remarks, I am writing down your super chat questions as they come in. So keep them rolling in. And then from there, I do a roll call where I call you all out as I see you, names and locations. We find out who it is, who's on the other side of the camera, names and locations. And then from there, after the opening remarks, after the roll call, from there, I answer super chat questions for the rest of the night. So if you've got something you want me to talk about in the second half of the show, by all means, send me a super chat and I will get to it. That is the format that we do here. Few things I'll just throw out there. The stream we did last night about the People's Party, Cornel West, and Nick Brana, that stream was a hit. That was a hit. I have had many people reaching out to me and thanking me for and we cut it as a video in defense of the People's Party. That stream we did last night was a hit. And I think it's great that we did that. We need people to speak up in defense of the People's Party, speak up in defense of Cornel West and his campaign. I think that is a great thing that people should be doing right now. And I'm really glad that that hit home with a lot of people. The other thing is we've been doing a lot more of these little shorts on this channel. And those shorts have been a big hit as well. So we're going to do more shorts. I'll be posting shorts right after this stream is over. And we're going to be doing a lot of shorts, right? Because people like shorts. They seem to do well on YouTube. So there's that. So I'm throwing that out there. We are keeping our eyes on the Uhuru movement. You know, they have been indicted by the U.S. federal government. They are facing very serious criminal charges. They're trying to jail them for being Russian agents. It's absolutely outrageous what the U.S. Department of Justice is doing to them. And so because of that, I would very much urge people to very much at this point, I would very much urge people to do everything they can to support the Uhuru movement, to give a donation to the Uhuru movement and their defense fund. We need to do everything we can, everything that we can do to stand with the Uhuru movement in the face of what's happened to them. Yeah. So we got a super chat here. Are you familiar with Jason Burmas? He was Alex Jones' Cabana Boy when he discusses a lot of degrowth and transhumanism things. You should have him on. Okay. All right. Let me write that down. I will get to that in the second half of the show. So there we go. And keep the super chats rolling in, because that's what makes the second half of our show happen, is me answering people's questions. But the Uhuru movement and the charges that they are facing are very serious. This is a test case. They want to see how far they can go with this, how much they can get away with charging this group of Black activists for being supposedly Russian agents. It's very disturbing what they are doing to the Uhuru movement, and we all should be stepping up to the plate and raising the case as loud as possible, raising it from the heavens. So I just want to reiterate to everyone watching. I want to reiterate to everyone watching right now that we absolutely must talk about why the charges against the Uhuru movement are unacceptable. We absolutely must be speaking up, saying hands off Uhuru, no matter what your political perspective, no matter what your ideology. We need to do all we can to support Chairman O'Malley, to support the Uhuru movement. We absolutely must do that. So I just want to emphasize how important that case is. I just want to emphasize how important that case is. Another thing I want to mention is, for those of you that are members of the Center for Political Innovation, we are having a national gathering coming up. We are having a weekend workshop at the end of June. We are having a workshop. It'll be in the state of Missouri near St. Louis. And we would really love to have you there. So if you can make it, that'd be great. If you're not a member of the CPI, sign up and become a member of the Center for Political Innovation. It's going to be a great workshop. We're planning out the attendees. We've sent out an invitation to all of our members already, and to some friends and allies. It's going to be great. June 23rd, 24th, and 25th. We will be having our Center for Political Innovation workshop. It's going to be great. So I really hope that many of you can come out and be there. It'll be a great introductory weekend. You'll learn all about our teaching, our ideology, our worldview, and our perspective. And you'll get a free copy of this book. Everyone who attends will get a free copy of this book. It's going to be awesome. It is going to be awesome. So I hope that you all can be there. That's going to be great. And a lot of exciting events are coming up this summer. We're going to be having a New York City event in early July. Details about that are coming up. It'll be about the legal system and how it unfairly targets low-income people. We are putting that event together soon. We should have the location and date of that event soon, and you'll see who the two speakers are. Two rather prominent individuals are going to be speaking, two rather prominent lawyers. I think most of you will have been familiar with at least one, if not two, not both of the speakers. There may even be a third speaker. It's very exciting. So I'm very excited about that. So that's coming up. We're always doing stuff at the Center for Political Innovation. We're always getting stuff done. Shout out to Peter Coffin, very skilled filmmaker. He made a beautiful documentary about our recent Center for Political Innovation conference. The link is down below. If you haven't had a chance to watch it, I would recommend that you go and watch the documentary that Peter Coffin made about our Summit Against Hypocrisy, our amazing anti-imperialist conference we did in Washington, D.C. It was really, really an awesome film. Go and watch it. Show it to 6 or 7 of your most normal, non-political friends. Go watch this film. It is worth watching. It is just a great anti-imperialist documentary that Peter Coffin made about the CPI and the great work that we do. So there's that is going on. So tonight, I'm feeling a little tired. That's okay. It's been some weird weather here in New York, and I did a lot of work today. Tonight, I went on Garland Nixon's show on KPFK Los Angeles. That was quite exciting. On top of that, I reported on the UN Security Council meeting that just happened. I don't know if folks are aware, but they just blew up. I mean, the Ukrainian regime is a terrorist regime. They bombed a dam, a hydroelectrical power plant. They blew up a dam, flooded an area, killed people. How is this not terrorism? Right? They've already been murdering people with car bombs, Dari Dugana, and now they blew up a dam. It's just so obvious that these forces the U.S. government has trained. If you look at how they torture the civilians and tie them to lamp posts, if you look at what they're doing, these forces that are armed and backed by the United States in this war in Ukraine that they will not let end. They just keep it going. These forces are terrorists. The torture they're doing, and it's unbelievable. And of course, they're trying to tell us that Russia blew up their own dam. Why would Russia blow up their own dam? Just like, why would they blow up their own pipeline, Nord Stream 2? Why? There's no logic to this, right? It is absolutely unbelievable. So I was covering the UN Security Council meeting about that. I also covered statements made by the various candidates. But it's interesting because one of the themes that we've developed on these live streams, if you're one of the people in the audience, which there are many of you who've been watching these streams for years, you'll know that there are two people that we love to talk about on these streams, two prominent political women in America. And really, these two women have become the face of good and evil in American politics. One of them is Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, I wrote an entire book about her. Kamala Harris and the Future of America, an essay in 3 parts, examining where she came from, her career as a vicious criminal prosecutor, her ties to the synthetic left, her estrangement from her father. And in that book, I highlighted that during her limited time on the debate stage in the 2016 election, Tulsi Gabbard used her limited time to go after Kamala Harris and expose her. And in that book, I talk about why Tulsi Gabbard, who I think is the face of good, why Tulsi Gabbard, who is active duty U.S. military, who's not a socialist or a communist by any means, but why did she use her limited time on the debate stage to just go after Kamala Harris? And I argue that within the U.S. military-industrial complex and within the U.S. military apparatus, there is a wing that wants a better relationship with Russia and China and wants to de-escalate global tensions. And I also argue that within the intelligence agencies and the Silicon Valley color revolution apparatus, there is a faction that is insane and wants to foment endless wars around the world. And what I argue in my Kamala Harris book is that Kamala Harris has been groomed by the insane regime change, World War III deep state faction, the forces that were behind the Hillary Clinton State Department. They groomed Kamala Harris to be their candidate, and they know how to push her buttons psychologically. Kamala Harris is not well, and that's apparent to anyone who watches her. She looks like she's drunk half the time. She's talking about her childhood, her 10-year-old self. Every speech, practically, it comes up. Kamala Harris is not well. And they know how to push her buttons, and she's the kind of person that they would take into war. But I've also argued that Tulsi Gabbard represents a wing of the Pentagon that is more nationalistic and has a more realistic understanding of what the costs of war with Russia and China would be. And they see Kamala Harris as extremely dangerous, and that there are really two factions within the U.S. government apparatus that want different things, that have different agendas. The good faction is represented by Tulsi Gabbard. The bad faction is represented by Kamala Harris. And this is an ongoing struggle that's happening. And I make this case in my book, and my book was very well received. Everyone who's read my book about Kamala Harris, go and read the reviews. There's over 51 reviews of my book on Amazon.com, and almost all of them, the overwhelming majority, are very positive. People say that I blew their minds with my analysis. People were not expecting the level of depth into Kamala Harris's psyche, into the nature of the U.S. economy, into the divisions within the ruling class. I go into great depth in my book about Kamala Harris. People love it. And in that book, I lay out what later becomes a thesis that's developed in this book, where I talk about the Yankee and Cowboy War has been reversed and how the military industrial complex and the industrial sector of the U.S. economy is at odds with the globalist regime change apparatus. I get into all of that. So tonight on this stream, there's been a few clips recently where Tulsi Gabbard has said some things. And there was another clip where The View decided they needed to defend Kamala Harris that I thought it'd be fun for our audience to take a look at. We could react to them together. This first one, this is Tulsi Gabbard recently. She was on Fox News, and they started talking to her about the NAACP. And she took the conversation in a completely different place that was really sweet and touching. And actually, this clip, it's shorter. The next one's a little bit longer. But this clip, I think, this is really a special clip of Tulsi Gabbard. Let's watch.
CP starting a huge battle with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, America's most prominent civil rights organization, issuing a...
Also, Ron DeSantis sickens me. He's anti-woke, but he is anti-China. He is everything's a communist. He's everything that's wrong on the Republican side is like incarnated in Ron DeSantis. You know, he is everything that is wrong with the Republican camp, right? Donald Trump is 1,000 times better than Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis is just, he knows people don't like wokeism. So he talks a game against wokeism, but he is an authoritarian. He is a warmonger. He's an anti-China hawk. He's awful in many, many ways. It's amusing to see him fight against Disney. That's certainly amusing because he's fighting a big corporation. But, you know, I mean, Ron DeSantis, ugh.
Travel advisory and warning Black Americans not to even go to the Sunshine State.
It is an attack against Ron DeSantis on the week that he's going to announce. But I think to your point, Greg, about...
Here's Tulsi, and look where she takes this. Not what anyone's expecting.
Relevancy, if you look at where Florida is now versus where Florida used to be. My grandfather served in the Air Force. He was stationed at Eglin Air Force Base. So my dad went, he grew up there in the panhandle of Florida. And, he was the only person of color in his class as a third grader. And he's told this story. He remembers it vividly, where he's sitting in the classroom. The teacher's going around and asking all the kids, okay, tell me your name and where you're from. So my dad says, hi, my name is Mike and I'm from Samoa. And the teacher says, Mike, is that a country in Africa? All the kids started laughing. And from that point on, he was called the N-word. None of the kids would play with him. He was chased out of white bathrooms and away from white labeled water fountains. And so he directly experienced how things used to be. So frankly, there's a positive and negative to this story. The negative, of course, is the NAACP is racializing and weaponizing racism for political benefit. The positive is it's a testament to their success in the civil rights era, that they have done so much good that the Florida my dad grew up in is not the Florida that kids are growing up in today. You're not seeing that kind of racism, discrimination, and frankly, the hatred that he and so many others went through.
Wow. I mean, that was a great clip. Tulsi Gabbard, she could have taken that a million ways. But she just started talking about what her father experienced, the racism that her father, who's from the island of Samoa, which is a U.S. territory, experienced when growing up and living in Florida. It was a beautiful way of taking the conversation in a different direction, talking about racism and bigotry. And look, Florida is interesting to me because, the Florida panhandle is very, very working class, very poor and very military, right? A lot of working class folks in the Florida panhandle, a lot of low income white people and people of color in the Florida panhandle. and a lot of military folks. The military bases, that's really big. But you go down further into Florida, you get into South Florida. South Florida is where you have a lot of wealthy people, people who retire, want to live on the beach. South Florida is also where, they tend to have, the Miami Cubans. And Florida, is an interesting political mix, right? Of all the states in this country, Florida is a state you can't really put it into a box. You remember the election that happened where Florida was the state that was contested, right? It was Al Gore versus George W. Bush. And Florida was in question. And Florida, it's a state, it's so diverse. You cannot put one stamp on it. It's not your typical red state. It's not your typical blue state, right? The panhandle of Florida is very much, it's a red state. It's like the South. But South Florida is something different. Miami is something different. Florida is a wild card state, right? Florida is very much a wild card. You have many different factors in Florida's politics. And, what's going on with Ron DeSantis, I do not like Ron DeSantis at all. I really, really don't like him. The more I listen to him talk, the more there's just nothing good there. I really hope he does not become our president. And I mean, it's possible, I suppose, if somehow Donald Trump is prevented from running or is prevented from being the Republican candidate, if somehow, it's him or Biden, he could win. But, Funky is talking about, Florida man is the classic trope. A lot of mass incarceration in Florida, right? A lot of imprisonment in Florida, it's just, I've met people from that state and, a lot of people locked up, a lot of imprisonment, a lot of poverty in Florida in different areas, right? Florida is an interesting state. It's a very, very interesting state. So I'm really glad that Tulsi Gabbard could share that personal story about what her father endured. Again, brilliant way to just take the conversation in a totally different direction. Good move on her part. Now, this is Tulsi Gabbard responding to Bobby Kennedy and the Democratic Party not having debates. And this is an interesting one.
For President Biden, who is getting low ratings on pretty much every key issue ahead of 2024. A new AP poll reveals that 66% of Americans disapprove of the president's handling of the economy. 67% disapprove of his performance on gun policy, and the same percentage disapprove of his handling of immigration. Meanwhile, Biden continues to face questions about his age and fitness to serve, even from those within his own party. Hillary Clinton now among them.
Now, there was that heart-stopping moment where he almost fell over coming down the stairs a day or two ago. Is that a concern?
Well, I mean, it's a concern for anyone. And we've had presidents who've fallen before who were a lot younger, and people didn't go into, heart palpitations. But his age is an issue, and people have every right to consider it.
That sets from the 60s.
Writing it down, John.
Congresswoman, she's right, and that was a neutrally objective statement, frankly, that absolutely all Americans should consider it. They should consider everything when weighing in on a presidential campaign. Perhaps this issue, however, will be more heavy than most.
I think it certainly is top of mind, given there's constant reminders of what a concern it is. But when you look at all of these different issues, Democrats are not happy with the work that President Biden is doing. So it should be a red flag to everyone watching to see how hard the DNC is trying to make sure that he is not held to account for his record. Simone
Absolutely.
Sanders was on Morning Joe the other day saying there will be no primary debate. There will be no stage for Bobby Kennedy or anyone else because the DNC will not allow it. It is
unbelievable what they're doing. No debates. When you have a president who is this unpopular and the majority of his own party doesn't want him to run, and they're not even going to have debates. I mean, at this point, it is unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, the autocratic nature and the Bonapartist nature of the Biden wing of the U.S. ruling class is revealing itself. They have decided they will rule. They don't need a popular mandate. Who cares if the majority of Americans don't want him? Who cares if Trump is way more popular? Who cares if their own party doesn't want him? They're going to be in power. They're going to stage an election. And if you got an issue with it, go screw yourself. I mean, it's really intense what they're doing.
It is all about Joe Biden, and I think it just reveals their hand. They are deathly afraid of Bobby Kennedy. They will do all that they can to pretend like he doesn't exist, and if he continues to build momentum, they're going to do everything they can to try to destroy his candidacy, because they don't want voters to have an actual choice. They don't want to have.
Look, I just saw the video where Bobby Kennedy talks about how the CIA killed his father, how Sirhan did not fire the bullets that killed his father. It is a heavy video. You should go watch it if you have a chance, right? It is all coming out now. The United States is coming apart, and they are starting to acknowledge all kinds of things about 9/11 and about the Kennedy assassinations and all of that. I wrote a whole book, Where is America Going? And Tyler McConnell, shout out to you if you're watching, did a great job. He's doing an audiobook of it. I'm telling you, this is the end of the old America. The question is, what replaces it? What replaces it? And I mean, the Biden administration, wow.
Conversation where our president, his record will be examined and criticized.
Do you think that strategy would work?
I don't know if it'll work, but I'll tell you, he's incredibly vulnerable. We just reached day 853 of the Biden presidency. According to the 538 average, at this point in the presidency, he is the least popular president in the history of polling, with the exception of Jimmy Carter, which is kind of appropriate because he's the worst president since Jimmy Carter. He's 80 years old. He would be 86 if he won a.
And he works for the same faction as Jimmy Carter. Right? He works for that same faction, the same people who brought us the Carter presidency, the Trilateral Commission, Zbigniew Brzezinski, the Rockefeller think tanks, the people who created Silicon Valley. I'm telling you, there's divisions within the ruling class, and there's one faction that wants to make the U.S. economy scream, to eliminate the lower levels of capital, to impose their degrowth agenda. There's a lot that's been written about this. There's a lot of divisions within the ruling class. Jimmy Carter and Joe Biden work for the same faction, the same Bonapartist, degrowth, Malthusian, ultra-rich faction of ultra-imperialists, if you want to call them that. There you go.
According to the Social Security Administration, women live longer, but an average American man has a 60% chance of reaching the age of 85. So that means about a 40% chance Kamala Harris would be president in some point in a second Biden term. So she's on the ballot. And
ding, 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 ding. That's exactly what I'm telling you. Kamala Harris will never win an election. She will never win an election. The only hope they have for getting their warmonger into office, the only hope they have for doing it is Joe Biden getting reelected and croaking. That's the only hope they have for it, right? And they wanted Kamala Harris to be the candidate. The voters didn't like her. They twisted Joe Biden's arm into picking her. Joe Biden did not want to pick her as his running mate. And the only way they can get this deranged woman, this sadistic narcissist, this unstable person into the presidency and get her finger on the nuclear button and get the Hillary Clinton State Department in control of the White House and the U.S. military apparatus. The only way they'll be able to finally get Arab Spring 2.0, which is what they want. I talk about this in my book on Kamala Harris. The only way they can do that is for Joe Biden to just get in there and have a heart attack or something. And they are determined to do this. Now, the American people, just over and over again, they cannot get us to like Kamala Harris. They just can't sell her to us. But because they have worked so hard at programming her, because they know how to push her buttons so well, they're going to keep trying. I've warned you all many, many times. I've been talking about Kamala Harris. I wrote a book about Kamala Harris. I know about her father. I mean, my book will blow your mind. They want her in the presidency because they want chaos. Right? They want Arab Spring 2.0. They want regime change wars. They know how to push her buttons. There's a lot there.
Less popular than he is.
And when you bring up popularity, Kaylee, these polls reflect an absolutely dismal point of view of not only the president's fitness to serve, but also how he has performed or underperformed during his tenure.
They do, but I have a little bit of deja vu because I'm sitting here listening to this and I'm thinking we could have had this same conversation November of last year before the midterms, and look at what happened. The bad poll numbers for Biden didn't equal success for the GOP. So between now and next November, I am going to be a siren for the GOP having discipline here, because even when you dig into this poll, you see the 30% approval on the economy, on immigration, gun policy even. So it's a dire assessment. However, when you dig down into this poll, there was this one aspect that caught my eye, and it was on the debt ceiling. And it showed 79% of Americans say we shouldn't raise the debt ceiling, or if we do, we need to have deficit cuts. So I'm like, okay, Kevin McCarthy's winning on this. 79% of Americans agree. But when you look at who they're blaming for this, they're blaming Kevin McCarthy, Republicans, Democrats, and Joe Biden, meaning the GOP messaging is not breaking through. We have to be disciplined. We have to be smart. We have to be almost perfect, because you're up against a liberal media. You're up against social media. So it's incumbent upon the GOP.
Yeah, but where is all this money going to? You're complaining about the debt ceiling and government spending. Where's all this money going to? Ukraine. Billions and billions and billions of dollars poured into Ukraine while our roads are crumbling, while our schools are a disaster. Billions and billions of dollars are going into Ukraine. Billions and billions of dollars. I mean, they just continue to unload our tax money to prolong a war. A war the Ukrainians have no chance of winning. They're losing. People are dying. They just blew up a dam. I mean, you don't talk about the budget and government spending if you're not going to talk about cutting off the money to the Kiev government, the World War II memorial destroying Kiev regime. Do not talk. No one should be able to talk about the budget, about the deficit, without talking about spending on Ukraine. I mean, that woman, she shouldn't have gotten away with just saying that. Talk about Ukraine or don't.
Be disciplined and get rid of the noise.
You made me think of something, Tulsi, and when you're talking about how the left doesn't want Biden to take accountability or responsibility for everything that has failed on his watch, maybe that's where some of the ageism speak is coming from. I mean, I remember when Hillary Clinton was running, and Obama, for that matter, with the Reverend Wright tapes. And it was always a little strange that late in that primary year between Obama and Hillary Clinton, how those tapes suddenly appeared. And I thought, well, the left would probably have more access to this stuff than a Republican sitting in the pews of Reverend Wright's church. And I just look at this. Who politically actually benefits if Joe Biden is suddenly silenced by?
Look, I'll tell you what I think about that. I think that Obama's presidency was staged, and he went to a Muslim school, and he had a crazy preacher named Reverend Wright. All of that was about staging Obama's image. Barack Obama was about resetting U.S. relations with Europe and with the Muslim world. And so in order to do that, they had to fake out the world. They had to convince the world that he was going to be more friendly to the Palestinians, more friendly to the Muslims, more friendly to the Arab world. And so showing Reverend Jeremiah Wright get up and say all the anti-imperialist things he said about Hiroshima and Nagasaki, etc., that faked out the world. People got excited. I got excited. We thought maybe we had a president who actually
take an acuity test.
Actually was anti-imperialist. That's what we thought we were dealing with. And Barack Obama, if you listen to him talk, he sounded very pro-imperialist, but they kept digging up things about him that trying to convince you he was going to somehow be an anti-imperialist. He was a communist. He was a socialist. It was all, I feel like the baiting of Obama, he was going to win. The Bush administration had gone down in flames. The Republican Party was still reshuffling. Obama was going to win, but they had to convince us that he was somehow better than he was. And it was also about convincing the world. I've said that Barack Obama was a modern day Napoleon, right? When Napoleon went to go conquer Egypt and conquer Syria, he put up posters everywhere claiming he was a Muslim, and he wasn't. but it was a manipulation to try and get the Arabs to side with him against the British. I am convinced that the reason they picked a black man named Barack Hussein Obama was because they needed him to be the president while they pulled off the Arab Spring. You know, they needed somebody who the Arab world and the Muslim world thought was more friendly to them. So I'm convinced a lot of that Reverend Wright, Jeremiah Wright stuff. And he went, you know, what was it? There was a show that used to be popular on YouTube called Red State Update. I remember they had a show at one point. They had an episode where the one guy says, he's like, oh my God, Barack Obama went to a radical Muslim school. And the other one said, no, he didn't. He went to a crazy black preacher church. Come on. But it was like, it was a joke because like they were playing up Obama to be this extreme far left radical. And then if you actually listen to Barack Obama talk, he was a regime change war hawk, in every conceivable way. But anyway.
And you've seen all of those, not just Robert F. Kennedy Jr., but others coming out of the woodworks now. Maybe Manchin would take a peek. Now, Manchin's only a couple of years younger than Biden, so it may be suggested that he would need the test too. But you were saying something during the commercial that really jogged my brain. Age is a problem in general in our leadership.
Yeah. Exactly. When you look at the focus on a lot of the issues, or the lack of focus actually on real issues that are affecting families and working people all across this country, you've got a lot of folks who are in office who are and have been way out of touch with that reality themselves for a very long time. Worse yet, and taking age out of it, because, I'm not saying that our government has to be made up of only young people and young families and parents and working people. Right. It's just about caring. It's about...
Yeah, well, it's because the USA is very much a mafia state, right? And, in the mafia, you wait your turn to get to the top. It's not about how good of a politician you are. It's not about how charismatic you are. It's not about how good you govern. It's because the USA is run like a mafia family. The Democratic Party and the Republican Party are a mafia family. And Nancy Pelosi is old enough that she waited her way up to being the godfather. That's what it's about, right? That's why Joe Biden is the president. Do you think Joe Biden is the most charismatic guy they got? No, but he waited his turn. The pecking order and the gang, the criminal organizations that run this country, he waited his turn to get to the top, And the younger people in politics are all the exception to the rule. You got AOC, was very carefully selected. We got to have a young one. Okay, here's AOC, and now, and that's how they're doing it. It's very, very much, it's all very, very much contrived. And when things are contrived and when it's not about who's actually good at doing the job, when it's more about, who's getting pushed to the front and who has waited their turn and who's got place in the pecking order, you're going to have an age problem, right? That's just how these things work.
Hey, I may not know what you're going through, so I'm going to come and visit your community. I'm going to listen, and I'm going to better understand how we in positions of public service can actually work together across party lines to address those needs. And that's what we were talking about, is the lack of care and the lack of actual intent to solve problems.
Right. You know what? Some of that is driven by, Emily. Younger people don't have inevitability. They haven't been around for 50 years like Joe Biden, who basically becomes king. It's inevitable. Everything's inevitable. You don't have that when you're younger.
What's not inevitable, however, are those results. So to your point, Kaylee, we just need that discipline on the GOP side, and we'll get there if we stick together. Hey, everyone.
So there you go. That was Fox News. So now from there, I thought we would show this atrocious panel about Kamala Harris that other people are talking about. I noticed other people are talking about it, but it's The View. And look, they're still... No one has gotten more of a chance than Kamala Harris. Seriously. They talk about how people get one chance. Kamala Harris, they gave her a chance in the Democratic primary. She failed. So they gave her another chance, made her vice president. She failed. They gave her it's like they cannot give this woman enough chances because they have worked on her, because they have invested so much into this woman. They don't want their money and their years of psychological manipulation and their years of research, and they don't want it to go to waste. They don't want it to go to waste, but they are just desperate to sell Kamala Harris to the American people because they know how to control her and how to manipulate her. It's frightening.
The Washington Post says the Biden team is trying to boost Vice President Harris's image.
Why? Right? I mean, it's just how many more chances are you going to give her? Nobody likes Kamala Harris because she's a fucking nut job. Nobody likes Kamala Harris because she's a sociopath. People can tell that this is not a good person. This is a person who likes to lock people up. This is a person who would take us to war in a heartbeat just to show the world she's tough. Why are they trying to sell Kamala Harris? Just stop. Just stop. You know, I get it. You guys like her because she's a war hawk. You guys like her because you programmed her. You like her. We don't want her. Is America even going to pretend to be a democracy at this point? I mean, this is such a joke. Donald Trump, the most popular candidate, is probably not going to be able to run. They're going to legally prevent him from running, right? They're not even going to have debates in the Democratic primary side. And the people have spoken over and over and over and over again. We don't like Kamala Harris, but they just keep rolling it out there. Come on. Come on. You'll like her this time. Give her another try. Give her another try. No. If you can't tell how rigged this election, I mean, this is ridiculous. They're trying to sell Kamala Harris again.
But I'm trying to figure out, why do they think it needs boosting? What is it?
Why do they think it needs boosting? Well, it could just be that everyone doesn't like her.
Well, I'll get right.
You know how you see that awkward silence there? Like, what does she need boosting for? Well, I mean, I'm going to roll that back. That moment is just kind of like even the other panelists are like, "Are you serious?"
Why do they think it needs boosting? What is it?
Crickets, crickets, crickets. Look at the faces there. Like the woman in the yellow is just like, oh boy. And the woman there is like smiling awkwardly. And it's like, did she just say that? Did she just say that? Everyone knows how unpopular Kamala Harris is. It's like Whoopi Goldberg is kissing up to somebody. I mean, it's kind of sad.
Team is trying to boost Vice President Harris's image. But I'm trying to figure out, why do they think it needs boosting? What is it?
Awkward.
Well,
awkward.
I'll get right in there. So listen, the vice president, when she came on the ticket in 2020, I was thinking game over. She is a rock star. I'd seen her in Senate hearings, super effective, saw that prosecutor side of her come out. And listen, they won. She helped deliver female voters.
Yeah, we saw that prosecutor side, how she jailed all kinds of people for smoking marijuana and then laughed about it herself. How she tried to execute an innocent man and block DNA evidence. Yeah, we saw the prosecutor side. You know, most of us who aren't fancy TV stars on The View don't find that to be good. Anyone who's got a relative who's done time or been incarcerated, anyone who's had a relative who's struggled with addiction or a family member who's had to deal with the legal system before, they didn't find that part of her attractive. Honestly, I don't know, with this movie star on The View or whatever, she thinks it's awesome. She loves prosecutors, right? Yeah, the American people who've lived under this mass incarceration, low-wage police state, they don't particularly love criminal prosecutors.
Black voters for the president. It's her time in office that I take a bit of issue with. And having worked for a vice president, you kind of have two jobs: do no harm and try to keep a higher approval rating than your principal. She's not really been able to do either. And I feel like she hasn't broken through on major policy accomplishments.
That's like such a nice roundabout way of saying she's done nothing. What has Kamala Harris done since she was president? She's given some slurred speeches where she talks about the passage of time. She's, done a few photo ops with kids. She went to Guatemala and said, "Do not come. Do not come." Like, she has done nothing as president. She's made her staff angry and caused them to leave. She has done absolutely nothing as president. She hasn't come through on her policy. That's a roundabout. She hasn't done jack shit. That's what she's done. Nothing. She has done absolutely nothing. Like she has had a job for the past 3 years in which she does absolutely nothing.
She will, fairly or unfairly, be the most scrutinized vice president in history because she's running with the oldest president running for president. And she's also.
How's that unfair? And no, she's not the most scrutinized. She is not the most scrutinized vice president in history. Nobody talks about her father, Donald Harris. No one knows anything about him except for me. No one's been brave enough to talk about him except for me. Go look into who her father is. No one talks about it. Go look into her time as prosecutor. Nobody except for Reason Magazine and a few other people like myself have been brave enough to talk about it. No one scrutinizes her at all. She's just, she's this really, really amazing woke woman who, yeah.
Woman. But I think you have to be able to fairly critique the vice president of the United States without just saying it's the color of their skin or the fact she's a woman.
But it is part of it.
Why? What makes you say that?
Well, we're in the United States of America.
But with someone like me saying it, do you think I could have a legitimate policy of
It's just like so woke.
It's not you. It's just we're in the United States of America, and black women, and this is just not me saying it. I mean, there have been studies. Black women are considered less articulate. They are considered uglier. They are considered all of these things
beautiful,
by this country, and it's because of the history, of course, of misogyny and
But it's also
sexism.
just women. I mean, Jerry Ferraro back in the day ran for vice president, and they went after her too.
And that's the misogyny part. But when you mix
fact,
the
Barbara
misogyny,
Bush.
Like, this is a great way to not make it about Kamala Harris. Let's just have a conversation about racism and sexism in America and how unfair things are. And, that's a great way to avoid talking about the issue at hand, which is Kamala Harris, right? Kamala Harris, who made a career locking up black men and appealing to the racism of jurors, right? Kamala Harris, who was the queen of mass incarceration. But let's not talk about Kamala Harris. Let's just talk about the media and how they view certain demographics. I mean, and that we should acknowledge that there is unfairness to certain demographics. I mean, there's no reason we can't acknowledge, that hardships exist and there is bias and perception, etc. But the issue at hand is not the history of bias against all black people and all women in America. The issue at hand is Kamala Harris.
I'm sorry.
It's extra. It's a little extra, but I understand why they are boosting her at this point, and they want to boost her because no Democratic nominee can win the general election without the black vote. I mean, that is just a fact. And when she became the vice presidential candidate, I have a picture of all the women from the Divine Nine strolling to vote because of her.
Right.
And so
Oh yeah, that's totally spontaneous right there. Totally spontaneous, right? These women wore matching outfits and walked to the polls totally spontaneously because they were just so excited that Kamala Harris was nominated. Like, this is embarrassing. This is a posed photograph. This is staged. This is theater, right? But this is supposed to be, look at all the people who went to the polls just to vote for Kamala Harris. I mean, they didn't, have matching T-shirts, and I mean, this is, okay. Yeah, that's the spontaneous upsurge. Everyone was just so excited that Kamala Harris got nominated that they magically put on the exact same shirts, the exact same dresses, skirts, and they marched in perfect formation to the polls to vote, right? This is like the Wizard of Oz or something. Like, this is crazy, right? It's just, oh, man.
I think that she probably, in many respects, won that election for him. And so
she didn't win the election for Joe Biden. That is not true in any conceivable way. She's less popular than Joe Biden is. She won the election for Joe Biden. Some things are true. Some things are not. That ain't true. She got less than 1% of the vote in the Democratic primary. Tulsi Gabbard got more votes in the Democratic primary than Kamala Harris did. How can you say that? She did not win the election for Joe Biden. You can't just say that on national television. That's not conceivably true. There is no truth in that statement at all. She was less popular than Joe Biden was. Some things are true and some things are not. She did awful in her debate with Mike Pence. How can you say that? She just says that. Oh, she won the election for Joe Biden. No, she didn't. No, she did not. That's not actually true. There is no conceivable way. I followed this very closely. I wrote a book during the campaign. That didn't happen. That did not happen. Who on Kamala Harris? Does Kamala believe this? Is this what Kamala Harris's staff says to her behind closed doors? You actually won the election for Biden, Kamala. And she believes, I'm sure she believes that. Holy shit, though. Anyone who thinks that has no idea what was going on in the 2020 election. That is, oh my God, welcome to Disneyland. Did she just say that? She won the election for Joe Biden. No, she couldn't even come close to winning the Democratic primary. They had to twist Joe Biden's arm practically to make her the nominee. Oh my goodness.
Voters saved his campaign in 2020. They could also be why he loses it in 2024. And so that
black voters won it for Biden. Biden, got the black vote overwhelmingly. There's no question about that, right? And Biden, Biden has a lot of popularity. He comes out of Delaware, and Biden does have a lot of respect among black Americans, but not Kamala.
a lot of sense. Now, in terms of doing harm or, Vice President Pence, no shade, but I think
a lot of shade. Come on, there's a lot of shade.
There's some shade.
Go for it. What do you do? What's it?
I'm trying to be a little even-handed. He was responsible for the administration's COVID response, and we know how well that went.
Well, but real quick on that, I could off the top of my head list 3 major accomplishments of Vice President Pence. The U.S.-Mexico agreement, our trade policy that was negotiated.
Who are you talking about now?
Vice President Pence.
Oh, Pence.
Operation Warp Speed, which...
This is all so staged. None of these people know anything about what they are fucking talking about, except for maybe Whoopi Goldberg. None of these people have any clue what they're talking about. Whoopi Goldberg, she lived in East Germany. She does have a political background. Whoopi Goldberg kind of knows what she's talking about. The rest of these people have been given, talking points before the show. This is bad television. This is very, very, very bad television.
Love or hate the COVID response, we all have the vaccine now, and that's a good thing. And he did get Republicans' tax reform. I know as Democrats, you don't think those are wins, but those are things that he accomplished.
This is theater. This is performance art. This is not natural. This is robots. This is robots talking at me.
Struggle with the vice president. Why is she not front and center on Dobbs? Why hasn't she given a major speech?
Well, she has. She is.
What she said that.
But she is the one who's going to go after these anti-abortion people, which is really the crucial element and why the Republicans will lose again.
Well, the thing about the vice presidency is it is riddled with it's a losing job. It's always been a second spot that gets the hardest.
Not for Cheney.
No,
not for Cheney.
Because he was actually the president.
Yeah, but it was like a behind the scenes type of thing, and they hid him away with good reason, probably. But it's a hard job. It is always ridiculed. But my issue actually, and I understand what you're saying, Sonny, about there's definitely no way to look at this without adding sexism and racism to a lot of people that probably take issue with her. Mm-hmm. I'm not erasing that. As someone who also has a hard time listening to her do speeches because she has this tendency, they call it the word salad, but where she starts to almost, I don't know if she's going off script and ad-libbing or improving, and if that's the case, she needs to stay on script. If it's her speechwriter, they need to change the speechwriter, because when you're 2 years in, they need to protect her more. Well, I don't need to I was using that clip to show, and I think everyone's seen it, when she starts to, well, we'll just show the clip then. It's
the significance of the passage of time. Right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time.
We got to take this stuff seriously as you are, because you have been forced to have to take it seriously.
During Women's History Month, we celebrate and we honor the women who made history throughout history.
She's reading a
Just,
prompter.
if she's reading a prompter, they need to immediately fix that. You are the vice president of the United States. The administration and the president are responsible for protecting her.
Well, I would add that as a lawyer, you're generally told when you're speaking that you speak in threes. because that's what people remember. So if you're going to talk about a car, you
I don't even know. I mean, that's I yes. She is speaking in threes as a strategy to tell it to us 3 times. It's a strategy that she learned as a lawyer. Speak in threes so you can remember it. It's a brilliant thing. Kamala Harris is not stupid. No. Kamala Harris doesn't have trouble speaking. Kamala Harris isn't clueless. No. Kamala Harris is doing a brilliant lawyer mind trick on us all. She's saying it 3 times. Something she learned from a pickup artist book. Oh, good Lord.
the car, the red car, the fast red car. So I think what you just
But you don't
saw
use the definition in the word in the definition.
You do. So I think a part of that is that. But again,
She's just a genius. She's a mastermind, apparently, right? Kamala Harris is genius. She's saying the car, the red car, the bright red car. It's this brilliant hypnotic technique that Kamala Harris is pulling on all of us. Funny that it's not working and that she's so wildly unpopular. Like, wow. So she won the election for Joe Biden. The only reason anyone doesn't like her is because they're racist and sexist against black women. And when she says things 3 times and looks like she's high on drugs, it's a hypnotic, brilliant technique that just doesn't work.
you know, we can't compare her with the likes of Pence.
No, there's enough criticism to go
Sarah
around.
Palin,
Can I get
Dan?
Yeah. Whoopi Goldberg is not buying it. Whoopi Goldberg is not buying it. She had her cheesy line at the beginning of the show about, why do we need to boost her? And then she's sitting here, she's keeping her mouth shut, and she's just like, this is stupid. This is really stupid. Like, she's not buying this. She's not buying it.
Quail.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Because, first of all, Trump is the king of word salad. And if he had the words, he has maybe a vocabulary, I would say, of about 75 words.
Of course.
Okay, so he's running for president.
But it works for Trump. I'll tell you, the word salad thing that Trump does, it works very, very well.
Also a problem.
And then I was watching Ron DeSanctimonious, as he calls him, and talk about not saying anything. Or just watch this.
Why is right now the time for Ron DeSantis to run for president?
Because everyone knows if I'm the nominee, I will beat Biden and I will serve 2 terms and I will be able to destroy leftism in this country and leave woke ideology on the dustbin of history.
Okay, what does Yale University take anybody these days?
Yeah.
He went to Yale.
What's wrong with that? I mean, that's his message. Everyone hates woke. He's going to destroy woke. I mean, it's not a stupid thing to say. I mean, that's just, I don't like Ron DeSantis. I think he's awful in many, many ways. But that clip, I mean, he's on Fox News, for Christ's sakes. What do you expect him to say? Oh, I'm gonna be a communist. I'm gonna, I mean, of course he's gonna talk that way. I don't think that's, that's what he needed to say. I am gonna destroy wokeism and left. Of course, that's what they want to hear. Like, what do you expect him to say?
Destroy leftism. Really, that's a lot of
Well, it's
people
also
in
a
this
terrible
country.
general election.
Well,
Yes.
and he will get rid of wokeism. You know what? I am woke, and I'm proud of it. Okay.
Yeah, and that's why communists shouldn't be woke. If this woman on primetime TV is woke, speaking for the class enemy, you shouldn't be woke, right?
You know what? I don't have any problem when people have their way of speaking. It doesn't bother me. I as you see, I have my own issues with speaking. But I do think that it is not a job that people have a deep respect for. No matter who the vice president is, you're there to make everybody feel better. Because really, is that the person you want? Well, probably not your first choice, but they know the drill. You know they know what needs to happen. That's why, as boring as Pence was, you know he knew the drill and he was going to do what the conservatives wanted. You know that she's going to do what you know Democrats want. As long as people are doing their job and they're wearing their clothes and they're not naked, I'm okay with it. As long as they're not standing there buck naked doing stuff, I don't care. You can dress as, look, you can dress as Bozo the Clown. I don't care. Get the work done. If you get the work done, I'm going to vote for you.
And she is getting the work done.
Yes.
We don't have time, but
No, she's not. She has done almost nothing as president.
there's a list of stuff that she's been doing.
Well, and we have
There's a list of stuff she's been doing. No, there's not. She hasn't done anything.
time for this. Hey, Ron, you know, being asleep as you are and have been for quite some time. See, many of us have been awake this whole time. We don't have any choice. We don't have choice as women to rest up.
Is this show like on drugs? The whole show is like something out of a bad dream. I'm glad I don't watch daytime TV. This whole show is like something out of a bad dream. Like, what in the world are they talking about? I mean, it's like half of it is like talking points they got from somebody. The other half is them trying to sound woke, and like this whole show is a bad dream. Oh my God. I used to kind of enjoy The View back in the days when Rosie O'Donnell was on there. What the hell is this? I mean, I'm glad I don't watch anymore. Jesus Christ, this is an awful show. You know, it doesn't matter as long as you're not naked and you do the job. And what the hell is this show?
And be asleep and see things disappear. We don't have time for that. So you want to fight all of us? Because you're going to be fighting your own women as well. Yeah. Because they're not going to take this ridiculousness that you're thrusting on people. It's not like they're voting for this. You are making these decisions for your state. We're watching you, Ron.
Now we have to have a
Kamala
fist fight. What in the world? Well, look, to be fair, that show is not directed toward me, right? They do not have guys like me in mind when they produce that show. I do not know what the hell that was that I just watched. That was, my goodness. What in the world did I just watch? I thought I was watching a clip where they promoted Kamala Harris and did so very stupidly. It started out that way, and then it turned into something that was, good Lord. Good Lord. I don't know what that was I just watched. You know, Ron, I'm watching you, and I'm proud to be woke. And I mean, that was a TV train wreck if there ever was, but I guess that's where we are as a country. So there you go, folks. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. We are going to do the roll call, and then I'm going to start answering your super chat questions. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Who's with us? Who is with us? We got who is with us? Names and locations. I will call you out as I see you. We are doing the roll call. All right. We got Cleveland Pirate Alex, Isaac in Vancouver, Canada, Patch in Arizona. We got Michael in Houston. Very, very, very good. All right. We got Colin in Greensboro, Molly in Orange County, Rupert in England, UP of Michigan, Terry Barnes, JT24 in Mississippi, Temple City, California. We got Sao Paulo, Brazil, Jenny Lynn in Cincinnati, Jamie in St. Paul, Minnesota, Roy in Malapa, Sydney, Australia, George Muniz, AJ in MJ, New Jersey. We got Chicago, Illinois, New Haven, Connecticut, Heidi in Edinburgh, Scotland. We got West Virginia, Samuel Price. We got Peter Coffin in Florida. Shout out to you, Peter. Very skilled filmmaker. Does great work. Bob Troy in New York. John McCarthy in Chicago does great work for the Uhuru movement. Warwick from Wellington, New Zealand. Tony from Tasmania. Balthazar in Oakland. No Ireland. Singapore. Edinburgh, Rebecca in Chandler, Indiana, Briggy in Pennsylvania, beloved member of our community, Auckland, New Zealand, Deb in Mexico. Shout out to you, Deborah. You're awesome. Got to meet you in California a couple years ago. Truth Teller in Canada, Maple in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Welcome, Maple. David Rennie in Hamilton, Ontario. Micah in Las Vegas. Welcome, welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Names and locations. I will call you all out as I see you. And then from there, I'm going to start answering super chat questions that people have. Super chat questions. Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? So we got Sarah Gray in Toronto, Micah in Las Vegas, David and Rennie in Hamilton, Ontario. Welcome, welcome. Truth Teller Canada. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So glad to have you all here with us tonight. All righty. So now I'm going to start answering people's super chat questions. Before I do that, I am going to make the same appeal I've made the last few nights and point out that as someone who's watching this live, you have the opportunity to craft this conversation any way you want. It can go whatever direction you want. So because of that, I urge you to utilize your power and nudge the conversation in a good direction. Point this conversation the way you would like it to go. Get me talking about something that is important to you. So send me a super chat with whatever it is you want to talk about, and I will do my best to talk about it. So there we go. All right. First, are you familiar with Jason Cabanas? He was Alec Jones' Cabana Boy talking about transhumanism and degrowth. You should have him on. I am not familiar with this individual, but I would be open to having him on. Someone who went on InfoWars a lot. It'd be fun to have him on the show. So if anyone knows a way to reach this person, a lot of times people reach out to me and say, oh, would you have so-and-so on? The answer is usually yes, but I don't know how to reach this person. I don't know how to make that arrangement. So if you know how to reach this person and you think they'd be a good, yes, Jonathan Mahari, Stockholm, Sweden. If you know this person, I would be open to having him on. So there you go. There you go. All right. Post a separate clip. This is John McCarthy. He says, post a separate clip of the video of the Uhuru movement and Obama. I will do that. I will do that. I can certainly use my YouTube channel for that purpose. I can do that. I can post that clip. So I will have to cut it and post it. Very, very good. That I can do. The Uhuru movement ran for office, but Barack Obama told them to run for office. You can run for office yourself. So there you go. There you go. Next one is, where can I read Lenin's On the National Question? Well, I think I got it right up here. Right? Yeah, right here. Right? Lenin on the National Question. Right? We got National Liberation and Socialism. Selected Writings of Vladimir Lenin, published by international publishers. They've got a whole volume dedicated to Lenin's position on the national question, a number of different essays he wrote, the national program of the Russian Social Democratic Labor Party, critical remarks on the national question, the right of nations to self-determination, on the national pride of great Russians, which is an amazing essay that Peter Coffin pointed me toward that really just rips anyone who's critical of patriotic socialism to shreds, where Lenin talks about how they should be patriotic to Russia and proud of their Russian heritage despite being anti-imperialist. Very, very powerful essay. Anyone who tells you that you can't be a socialist patriot, they're wrong. So there we go. Yeah, there's a whole volume of Lenin on the national question, and it's important. That is an important point of Leninism. That classical Marxism rejects any struggle for national liberation. However, in the final years of Marx's life, he became sympathetic to the Irish people and their struggle for national liberation. So there you go. There you go. Marx was changing on that issue at the time of his death, but classical Marxism says there is no nationality. Workers of the world unite. That's classical Marxism. But Marx was starting to shift. And then Lenin is the one who developed the thesis on the national question and said there are oppressed nations, and the nationalism of oppressed nationalities that are held down by imperialism is a progressive thing. And that is a difference between regular classical Marxism and Marxism-Leninism. Marxism-Leninism supports the nationalism of the oppressed. The nationalism of oppressed people, it supports it against the imperialists. What is your favorite meal from Denny's? It's been a long time since I've been to a Denny's. However, I did frequent Denny's a lot when I was a college student years ago. There was a Denny's near my campus that one could walk to. And so me and my college buddies would sometimes go to Denny's, and I would always order their nachos. And I would get extra sour cream on the nachos. That's what I would do. I was never a fan of Denny's breakfast. I would either get a sandwich or I would get their nachos when I went to Denny's. Now, IHOP is Denny's major competitor. One thing I've always pointed out to people is that, during the 1990s, the Spartacist League, which is a Trotskyite communist group, they made a point of boycotting Denny's and protesting Denny's. There's a joke on an episode of The Office that is a reference to that, probably. There's an episode of The Office where what's his name? Dwight and the boss, Michael Scott, are driving somewhere, and he says, "Do you want to go to IHOP or Denny's?" And Michael Scott, the boss, says, "Come on, IHOP," or something like that. And he says, "Ah, you socialist." And that's a reference to in the 1990s when communist groups, most specifically the Spartacist League, were boycotting Denny's. There was also a reference to FIST, which was the youth group of the Workers' World Party on The Office. At one point, there's an episode where Dwight becomes the boss of The Office, and so to antagonize Dwight, one of the characters starts putting up posters with fists on them to join FIST. And then he confronts him and he says, "What is FIST?" And he says, "Oh, it's kind of like the French Revolution or the Black Panthers or communism." It's probably a reference to Fight Imperialism, Stand Together, which was the youth group of the Workers' World Party at the time. We were very amused. You have to remember that, radical groups can be fringe. Radical groups can be small and irrelevant, but a lot of people pay attention to what they do, right? A lot of people are very interested, right? There's a lot of people who are really curious to hear what the communists might be saying. That's how weird it is. So there you go. Bob Evans is absolutely superior to all. One of the greatest hardships of living in New York City is they do not have a Bob Evans. They don't have Bob Evans in New York City, and it is very difficult. And I also do enjoy Cracker Barrel. I'm a big Cracker Barrel fan. Something about New York City, they don't have good food. Now, there is some food you can get here in New York City they don't have elsewhere, like Ethiopian food. I really like Ethiopian food, and they have that here in the city, right? And you don't have that other places, but there's some nice Ethiopian food places where you can get Ethiopian food. So it's a give and take, but I love Bob Evans. I love Cracker Barrel, and they don't have those in New York City, right? It's just something about it. I understand that all the way out in the Bronx, I'm in Brooklyn, so it's not anywhere near me, but all the way out in the Bronx, they do, from what I understand, have a Golden Corral buffet all the way out in the Bronx, and that makes me smile. So, maybe one day I'll be out in the Bronx and I'll have an opportunity to visit their Golden Corral buffet, and that will make me very happy. So there we go. All right. St. Petersburg raid on the Uhuru movement shows how little has been done. I asked Tulsi to comment on it. I hope she does. I hope so too. I hope that Tulsi Gabbard comes out and speaks about the Uhuru case, right? We've already heard from Tucker Carlson and Glenn Beck about it. I think it would be great if Tulsi Gabbard spoke up in support of the People's Democratic Uhuru movement. And I think that would be a good thing for her to do. So I hope she does that. She's spoken about the weaponization of the Department of Justice before. And so I'm glad she responded to you, John, and I hope that she comes out in support of them. and opposing the prosecution, because what they're doing with the Uhuru movement is absolutely outrageous. And we all must oppose it. We must oppose it as much as we possibly can. We've got to oppose what they're doing to the Uhuru movement. So there's that. Very good. Now, this is an interesting one. Any thoughts on the revelation that Code Pink, Breakthrough News, and Vijay Prashad are tied to billionaire Neville somebody? Well, first of all, just because someone says that in my super chat doesn't make it true. I'd like to see the documentation of that. Right? So, let's provide the documentation. Right? I certainly believe it's possible, but I'd like to see the documentation. I don't want to repeat allegations like that without knowing that they are true. But I will say all three of those people that you have listed, Breakthrough News, which is the Party of Socialism and Liberation, which is unwatchable. I have never been able to watch Breakthrough News. It is just woke garbage, right? It's just woke garbage. I have never been able to watch it. I find it to be so lacking in any exciting content. It's just woke garbage. It's just not watchable. Breakthrough News, Code Pink. Now, Code Pink is a little bit different. Code Pink does good work, but they're afraid to anger the liberals, right? Medea Benjamin and all of them, they do good work, but they're, they pulled out of Rage Against the War Machine. They're kind of attached to the liberals, but Medea, I mean, they are raising the anti-war thing, even when it's not trendy. And they do work around a lot of international issues like Latin America, etc. Code Pink does important work, but it is very much attached to the Democrats and the liberals. And then Vijay Prashad, he is the Marxist intellectual who is, kind of a gatekeeper, and, he promotes degrowth and then tries to say he doesn't. And, he attaches himself to woke liberalism and the Stop Trump movement. And, he's one of these people who will never go all in when it's controversial, right? The fact that all of them are tied to this billionaire. I mean, these are all forces that will not become anti-woke, right? That to one degree or other, they're afraid to step into anti-wokeism, right? And, if that's because who's funding them, if that's because, I don't know. I will say this, though. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at the end of the day that they pander to wokeism and all of that. They still get attacked. There was a group of anarchists who attacked an event that was done by Code Pink, Medea Benjamin, and they bragged about it on their own website. And the link was going around. Keith Preston posted the link around and stuff. I don't want to draw attention to it, but a group of these Dugan-obsessed anarchists, they went and disrupted a Code Pink Medea Benjamin event. Why? Because she is somewhat anti-war on Ukraine. And that because of that, they've invented six degrees of separation that she's a Nazi. No matter how much you pander to the woke crowd, they will still find a way to declare you to be a Nazi, to declare you to be an evil person, to cancel you. They always will find a way, no matter what you do. So by pandering to them, and by not reaching out to all the people who hate them and can't stand them, you're making a mistake, right? Out of the movement to the masses means you stop trying to please these people, because you can't please them. If you have an anti-war bone anywhere in your body, you cannot please these people, right? Unless you just become a Democrat. If there's anything anti-war, anti-imperialist about you, they still think you're a Nazi. They still think you're the same as Hitler, and they will continue to harass you, etc. So stop trying to appease them. I don't know this billionaire and who he is or why he might be supporting them. And, I will say I find, Code Pink I can stomach. I like Code Pink. A lot of good people in Code Pink. But the other two, Breakthrough News and Vijay Prashad, I just have no, I really don't, don't appreciate either of those other two. So there you go. Thoughts on Julius Malema and the economic freedom fighters? Well, that's a breakaway from the African National Congress that's much more radical, much more, openly Marxist and anti-imperialist, EFF. South Africa needs change right now. And there's a lot of people in South Africa who would like the country to move in a more anti-capitalist direction. EFF gives voice to the force that broke away the National Congress and it moved in a more radical direction. So I think that's what the issue there is. I like a lot of what I hear from them. Very sympathetic to Cuba, very anti-imperialist. So there we go. Why are so many people against Nick Brana? Go and watch my video from yesterday in defense of the People's Party. Nick Brana is awesome, but I'll just tell you why people are against him is because he's building a real organization, right? They target people who build real organizations and get real shit done. If you're just a social media influencer talking smack on the internet, it's fine. Again, no one will have heard of you. It's kind of rigged to make sure certain people get ahead and all of that. No one will have ever heard of you, but whatever, right? But if you are building a real organization, they will target you as much as they can. And he's building a real organization. He's building the People's Party as a real organization, a real activist group that is doing real activism, real organizing. That is why they are targeting him. And that's why they won't, they've just gone after him so viciously. They tend to go after people who build real groups and real organizations. That's just how the game is played. That is who they target because the state and the ruling class doesn't want to do real shit. And a lot of people nowadays don't have the courage to go and do real shit. Nowadays, with technology, you have the option of just staying home, right? And so people who just stay home and are not part of anything real, they feel jealous. They feel they don't have a lot of pride in themselves. And so because of that, it gives them, the ability to tear down people who actually build real organizations and stuff. It gives them a sense of meaning. It gives them it's like, well, all the groups are bad. It's something that people can do on the internet is tear people down, spread rumors about somebody, harass somebody. It's something you can do on the internet. And you can do that on the internet. It's a way to be, feel like you're accomplishing something. And it's a sad state of mind that a lot of people get into. So, folks, for some reason, I am feeling unbelievably tired. And those are the last of the super chats. So I am going to say goodnight for now, even though it's only been about an hour and 20 minutes. I am feeling very tired. I don't know if it's just spring allergies or what. But I'll be back soon. Probably won't be back tomorrow night. Probably Thursday night I'll be back. For some reason, I am just feeling exhausted. But we had a decent stream. So I'll be back. Let's talk again soon, everybody. I'm going to put on the closing music, and I guess that'll be it. In the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. But the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. And while the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today.